What if I were to suggest that you play a key role in the awakening world? And that you are watching this because you have heard the call. We can start right now by opening our hearts and minds. Welcome to the awakening world.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to The Awakening World, our Sacred Sunday morning edition, and the completion, for now, of our introduction of RelationFlix. I want to welcome everybody that's in our Zoom room. I see a lot of our friends and some new friends as well. And as always, we always like to invite you to do two things. Please let us know where you're from geographically. Name, geographic location, and I really love seeing a lot of our regulars that are here with us. But already we've got people from the United Kingdom, Costa Rica, New Zealand, truly an international gathering, and that's pretty cool. I also want to welcome all of you who are watching on the YouTube channels and on Facebook, especially all of our friends watching on Unify. And I want to invite you, come on into the Zoom room with us. This is going to be an interactive show. We've got some amazing teachers of relationship. How can we have great relationships, which has been our theme for the weekend. And tonight, or this morning, we're going to talk about the most important relationship of all, our relationship to ourself. You know, self-love is the most important form of all. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. And we're going to be providing tips, tools, and practices and answering your questions. So if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, come on into our Zoom room. And it's really easy to do that. Just go to globalpeacetribe.com, globalpeacetribe.com, and register. Boom, you'll get the Zoom link. Come on in. You can interact more easily with us. I will do my best to take a look at the questions and comments coming in on Unify or on Love Coach Academy, but it's easiest if you come on into the Zoom room. So, life is relationship. And if we want to change the world, and almost everybody that's attracted to our shows wants to make the world a better place, wants to change the world. How do we do that? By changing ourselves and our relationships. And the whole awakening world is dedicated to improving our relationships to ourselves, to each other, and to our planet, to Mother Earth. Well, support is on the way. There's an amazing new organization just launching called RelationFlix. Now, many of you have been watching our shows this weekend, so you already know about it. But I'm going to bring on now the co-founder of RelationFlix and a great relationship coach and teacher in his own right. Welcome, Dolphin.
Thank you, Scott. Always a pleasure. Really excited to be here for Sunday.
Yeah. How's the weekend been going for you guys?
Really, really nicely. Yeah, we decided to put together a summit in lead up to the launch of RelationFlix. It was an opportunity for us to feature a whole bunch of the educators that are on the platform as well as just to bring a really generous offering of information and opportunity to grow and transform around relationship for free. We just did the whole summit is on offer for everyone, and there's a full day of workshops and presentations and programs today. So even though you've missed Friday and Saturday, which were amazing, today is going to be full of really amazing headliner educators and a unique program at the end of the day. Actually, we're going to do a new innovative game show program. So people are going to have a chance to come in, and it's going to mix kind of attachment science and psychology with astrology and human design. And we're going to play, and some people are going to get a chance to interact and see how the matches play out. And of course, those that are in the room get to watch the program. So we're just excited about bringing high quality, world class, entertaining and innovative programming and opportunities to learn around everything to do with intimate relationship. And it's just been a pleasure, and people have been pouring in all weekend, in part thanks to your generous sort of highlighting of us this weekend with your shows.
And so a reminder, the place to go, but go there after the show, is go to depthsummit.com. Go to depthsummit.com. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to, here's the schedule. You're going to want to go down and look at all these amazing teachers that they have, by the way. And I know many of these people. Some of them have come through Love Coach Academy, but some of them I'm meeting for the first time, and they're terrific. Look at all those teachers that they have. And of course, it's all grand opening, but what you're going to want to do is choose the VIP pass. Okay, scroll down, choose the VIP pass, and that gets you really off to the best possible start with RelationFlix. And we'll come back and we'll take a look at that one more time. I am really excited about the two teachers that you're bringing in today. And do you want to start by introducing Alice to us?
Absolutely. Yeah, I had the gift of meeting Alice a few years ago at a Tantra festival here in Alberta, where I'm based. And it was neat because I didn't know Alice previous to that. She actually lived down the road from me in Calgary. I'm up in Edmonton, but we hadn't met at this point. And I got to sit in on one of her talks, and I was just blown away. You know, when people have this ability to sort of effortlessly and in an embodied way express the things that are going on in our human condition, and in a way where you feel invited to know yourself more deeply and to feel more excited and empowered to be fully expressed with the relationships that matter most to you. And during the weekend, she got to sit in on one of my workshops, and there was sort of like this mutual admiration that was happening. And we just had this lovely, lovely synergy and connection. And she's someone that I just feel appreciative to have in my circle. And you know, she's often on other parts of the world, but we always find a way to kind of touch back in. And I'm just super excited that she had a chance to join us this weekend. And we hope that at some point we can bring her onto the RelationFlix platform and have some of her magic there with us. So Alice, thank you for being here.
Oh my gosh, that was so beautiful. Thank you, Dolphin, I'm fully just receiving of your reflection of me and how we met. So thank you for that. And it's so absolutely mutual. Thank you, Scott, for having me on the show, and everybody else who's here. My real joy and passion is embodiment, as Dolphin mentioned. And in particular, I love working with all human beings, and I really, really love working with women to step out of the restless mind that keeps us often in anxiety or self-doubt or not good enough with, and let go of that busy, busy mind and access the deliciousness of your body that is here right now all the time in every single breath. So that's what I really look forward to sharing today.
Oh,
and it's not just for women, it's for everybody. Every single human being, I feel, can benefit from this.
Absolutely. We have another guest named Zamir who was with us during just before we started, but I don't see. Oh, there he is. Okay, great. So our other guest today is going to be Zamir, who I'm just meeting for the first time, but he's a holistic counselor, a yoga educator, and he is dedicated to individual and group self-actualization. He leads clients in compassionate inquiry, and he's worked a lot with the approaches developed by Dr. Gabor Mate. And as most of you who come to my Secret Sunday show know, we usually start with a meditation, and Zamir has offered to lead us in a kind of opening meditation so we can kind of drop in and really prepare to listen and to receive the medicine from today's show. So take it away, Zamir.
Thank you for having me, Scott, Dolphin. Nice to meet you, Alice. Yes, let's start in meditation. Actually, just before I came on here, I was leading a memorial for Thich Nhat Hanh, affectionately known as Thay, a Buddhist teacher who's passed away. Truly brought the beautiful teachings on relationship. And so, I just want to take a moment and recognize one of our pioneers in this last century in spreading the message of mindfulness. And one of his beautiful teachings is that, the Buddha is my mindfulness. That's where the Buddha is. It's in my mindfulness. And the Dharma is my breathing. And it guards my body and mind. So with this, I invite us to just be in this moment and coming into this Buddha nature within ourselves. And that Buddha nature is the quality of our mindful attention, our mindful presence. So breathing in and out through the nostrils, breathing in, I'm aware of breathing in, and breathing out, I'm aware of breathing out. Breathing in, I'm aware of breathing in. And breathing out, I'm aware of breathing out. And as you inhale and exhale, experiencing this miracle of the breath, whereby as you breathe in, the air comes into your body and becomes breath. And then as you breathe out, the breath leaves your body through the nostrils and goes out into the air. Experiencing this quality of interdependence, as he calls interbeing. This breath that we breathe in and out is the breath that we share with the trees, with the flowers, with the birds. As you breathe in and out this way, noticing the rise and fall of the chest. With the rise and fall of the chest, you'll notice that there's a pause between the inhale and a pause between the exhale. And taking note of this inhale pause, exhale pause. This is the rhythm of our natural breath. Breathing in, I'm aware of breathing in. And breathing out, I'm aware of breathing out. And bringing your attention to your ears and noticing the sounds in the space, the birds chirping, cars passing by. And so you're coming into this dual awareness, aware of what's outside of us, while simultaneously aware of our breath and what's happening inside of us. Aware of breathing in and aware of breathing out. And whenever you're ready, opening your eyes. Thank you, Jeff. Scott.
Oh, thank you so much. That was beautiful. That was so nice. I hope you don't mind. I had the birds chirping, so that's why I unmuted, so you could
Yeah,
actually. I've got about a dozen sparrows outside feasting away right now.
wonderful.
So today it's all about the greatest love of all, self-love. And I'm really grateful that we're going to be talking about this. And it's perfect on a Sacred Sunday show for us to really drop inside and work on self-love. And kind of our featured teacher is Alice, who you met briefly. But now we're going to get a chance to really kind of drop in to Alice's wisdom. And Alice, as a coach, one of the things that I've learned that's sad is that I believe the great human epidemic is shame. Most everyone that I've gotten to know well, and I've worked with thousands of people over the years, most people carry shame. And most people carry shame about the way they look, especially as people get older. We're all a day older when we woke up this morning. Gravity takes its effect. We don't look like the commercials in the way that the media tells us we're supposed to look. And it becomes harder and harder for people to truly love themselves, especially to love themselves physically or sensually. So that's a long introduction to really what we're going to talk about today, but very specifically to you, how do we really move past shame and any negative thoughts we have about our appearance or who we are, or how we look, into self-love and specifically into self-pleasure?
Thank you for shining light on that, Scott. And I think you really nailed it. Like what a great precise summary, actually, that so much of the root of self-loathing, I would say, resides in shame, and shame can look in a lot of different ways, right? So for those of you who are listening right now, and especially if you're in the Zoom room, feel free to pop in the chat anytime if there's something that you're like, hey, what about this? Or I feel that too, or something, just that we can feel each other a little bit more deeply. Because that's actually a part of how we release shame, is to get the things that we feel are so unlovable, that are so unspeakable, out into the open. And shame can look and feel a lot of different ways, right? Just coming from my own personal example, I remember I carried a lot of shame around my body, and especially my sexuality. And this was something that many of us, I would go to say, in North American culture are raised with. This idea that the body is something to hide, to be embarrassed of, that it needs to look a certain way in order for us to be worthy. And that just simply isn't true. And yet we're swimming in a whole cultural ocean of messaging, from advertisement, from culture, from our family, whether it is right in our face or in the subtleties of our language, which lead us to feel that we're not good enough as we are. Industries, billion-dollar industries, benefit from our unworthiness. And so this is a really important topic to speak about and to bring to light. And maybe just like one little seed that I would love to start off with is just to share about my own personal journey in a nutshell, in hopes that perhaps this may feel a bit more relatable for some of you who are listening. Is I was a yogi. I still am a yogi. And for me, the spiritual path was a really, really important part of my awakening. And it nourished me on such deep ways in my heart, in my spirit, in my soul, in the asking of who am I and why am I here? All those really big, deep questions of life that bring us closer into intimacy with God, with the divine, with life. And yet the missing piece was the sexuality, because I was really into my my spiritual journey, and I had a partner at that time, my husband, who was also on the spiritual path, and we were, singing mantras and teaching yoga on Sundays, and doing all these great things, which was amazing. But then at some point in our relationship, he decided that he didn't want to have sex anymore, that wasn't a form of intimacy that he wanted to relate with and connect with for me, together with me. And at that point in time, there was no other solution. There was no other creative possibility of how I could get my sexual needs and desires met outside of the relationship or on my own. And I really accumulated so much shame around that. So much shame around having a sexual body, having desires, needs, wants. But I felt like it wasn't spiritual to want those things. And so then I decided, okay, well, in order to be in relationship with this man, then I need to shut that off. And so I tried to do that. I really did. I tried really, really hard for a few years. But then after a few years of frustration, struggle, wondering why am I not attractive enough? Like, am I not smart enough? Am I not beautiful enough? Am I not, the list goes on endlessly, to actually waking up one morning in my bathroom, locked, tap running so he wouldn't hear me, and self-pleasuring. And that was really a huge moment for me to realize, wait a minute, like, my body is not something to be ashamed of. My desires is not something to hide. This is actually what makes me alive. This is what makes me a human being. And that was really the start of a whole new path for me of, yes, bringing in the spiritual Alice, and I love that word, and to also welcome that part of me that is a sexual, alive being that has a body, not something to be gotten rid of, but something to be celebrated, something that is sacred, something that I have in this lifetime as a vessel to enjoy my life with and through. So yeah, I just shared that as an offer, for anybody who may have carried some stories, whether it's from relationship or your religion or your family or anything like that, that there is a place. And I'm excited to share more about this as we go today. There is a place for you to be able to embrace all of who you are, including your body, including your sexuality, including your feelings and your emotions. And that for me is coming home to letting go of that shame that has kept you from your most intimate relationship, which is yourself.
Thank you. That's a beautiful opening. And we're going to hear from Zamir also, but I do want to read, we do have some comments coming in. I'm going to start with some comments from our Zoom room, and then in a few minutes, I'll read some of the comments coming in on Unify and on our different Facebook pages. George Noble is one of our regulars, and George is hearing impaired. And so he writes that his shame is about not hearing normally. He needs to see what people are saying. And so I guess the first question for you, I'm going to read a couple more comments, but the first question, Alice, is how people who have shame because they're physically not normal, right? They have a physical disability or difference. A couple of other comments. Omashar, who we're going to hear from musically, writes, as a Brit, I was brought up with shame and guilt as a part of my daily indoctrination, which has affected my ability to be truly intimate. And he is grateful for teachers such as yourself, Alice, and Samir, who we're going to meet. And Jeffrey Colebrook writes, greatest forgiveness has already been given. All we have to do is accept the gift from the universal mind. Yes, Jeffrey, but some of us are there and some of us are still trying to get there, and some of us go in and out, right, of feeling that unconditional love from the divine, and others, that's like science fiction. So that would be a good question maybe for Zamir when he comes on. How do we connect to really feeling that unconditional love from the universal mind? And then finally, Andreas writes, I can often feel shame when I experience fear from people in different kinds of circumstances. And so in my brain, I turn that into some kind of judgment from them. And then I get frustrated because I do not want to become angry or judge back. And I don't even know if they are judging or just afraid of me. So that's what my shame is all about. So thank you, Andreas. So Alice, you've got some comments to work with there, and then we'll bring on Samir.
Yeah, thank you for everybody who shared some of your comments, and I'll try and respond to some of those in a specific and then also in a general way. So for the one, I'm just trying to see who it was, George, for your sharing about having, different physical disabilities. And I'm sure you're not the only one out there who feels that there is something in your physicality, whether it's a disability, whether it's a way that part of your body looks, whether it's a, whatever it is that makes you different than everybody else. Well, first of all, I want to share that I am not you, so I'm not going to try and pretend to be you and understand what it is to go through the world with a hearing disability. And I can only imagine what that could feel like, but I don't know what it's like to be you. And so when I share, it's not from the place of pretending to know. But what I do offer is that when over time, when I've worked with, thousands of people around the world, we all feel, or the majority of people feel, that there is something that is uniquely ours that is so shameful, that is something to hide, that if other people knew this about me, they would never want to relate with me. Or this is the thing, whether it's my, I'm living in Switzerland right now and I don't speak Swiss German. And so my ability to connect with people is a little bit more challenged because I don't speak the language, because, and there can always be a reason that keeps us from fully stepping into our relationships with each other and with life. And what would happen if we turned that around and actually owned it, right? And what I mean by that is, shame can only exist in silence, right? Shame only exists in silence. And when we feel shame, it's usually because we are too terrified that if somebody could see that, or if somebody found out about that thing inside us that really actually makes us who we are, that we are so incredibly unlovable. And that's just not the case all the time. This is not true. Actually, often the thing that makes us the most unique, the most who you are is your magic in the world, right? So that would just be one way. And I know, again, it may or may not be specific to your question or your individual need or solution, but I feel like whenever we have something that we're really trying to hide, we spend so much time in the hiding or trying to make it smaller or trying to make it go away, instead of saying, wow, hey, in my relationship, I actually am terrified. I'm feel really vulnerable. I'm not sure. I just want you to know that I have a hearing impairment and I don't always catch on to every word that you say. And I'm afraid that that's going to keep us from being able to feel deeply connected. I'm afraid that I won't understand everything that you're saying, or that you're not going to get what I mean. And then that's going to keep us from having a loving relationship where we understand each other. So what is it at the core of our thing that keeps us from being intimate with each other that we're afraid of? And just naming it. And then when we name it, going to like Andreas's comment, when we name it, then we're not wrapped up in our minds, swirling around thinking, oh, is that person judging me? Is that person thinking that thing? Oh, but that look, oh, that meant something. Oh, but maybe now I'm judging that one. Like, oh my gosh. And then you become the judge. Like, I get it, Andreas. It's like a puzzle that is just purely inside our own selves, right? When we go that way. So my suggestion, and just to close up this piece right now, would really be to name that which feels vulnerable for you. And you never know what that can open up actually in intimacy.
Thank you so much. We're going to bring Samira on in a moment, but I've just got to riff on a couple things that you shared, Alice, that are really powerful. I've done a lot of television shows and near-death documentaries on near-death experiences. And I've worked with most of the leading researchers on this phenomena. And I bring it up because when people have a near-death experience, the experiences really vary. Some people see deceased relatives, some people see religious or archetypal figures, some people see the big great golden light. It really varies, but the greatest commonality, Alice, is that people, when they are shown or remember the meaning of their life, it's always a variation on the theme, I'm here to learn to love, starting with myself. It's the meaning of life. And thousands of people have had that experience. And so as a coach, I always then, the meaning of life is we're here to learn to love, starting with ourselves. And we all have our own unique wounding, our own unique shame, our own unique challenges. So how can we learn to love those parts of ourselves that we have embarrassment and shame of? And that's why the work that you're doing is so incredibly important. I'm so glad to meet you and to have you here. One last little thing I want to riff on is, because most of the time I'm coaching couples, I would say that 95% of all fights and arguments begin with an interpretation of what the other one said or did, right? And so Joe says or does something, Sally interprets it as a make wrong or a judgment or a criticism. She goes into reaction. Now she's no longer sweet loving Sally, I'm reaching for my things. She's now in her reptile brain. And so she does the reptile thing, and now John is in his reptile brain, and you've got two reptiles going at it because they're in reaction to interpretations that weren't even accurate in the first place. And so that all comes back to the beauty of what Alice said, which is when we can be vulnerable and not react to that interpretation, but say, oh, wow, I'm interpreting that as a criticism. I just heard that as a make wrong. Is that what you meant? Because I've noticed I'm getting scared. If we can take that vulnerability, because when we're vulnerable, it's an invitation to connect. When we react, then we become two reptiles going at it. I'm seeing smiles.
Yeah. I love your reptile. Thank you for making that
Oh,
so
yeah,
visual.
yeah, yeah.
And I love it because I see myself in it. I totally turn into a raging reptile sometimes when I'm in that part of my brain that gets so triggered from feeling misunderstood. A big one for me is feeling misunderstood.
Yeah.
Is like, wow, that wasn't my intention. And that's how it landed. And then because I have such core wounding around being wrong, my showing up in the world means that then I got to defend myself to be right because I don't want to feel like I could have been wrong. But that really just creates this deep conflict that actually keeps me from what I truly want. Right,
Yeah.
which is to be in connection. And connection can mean a lot of different things. It doesn't always mean that we're snuggled up in relationship and everything is golden. Intimacy can also mean, wow, babe, this is the truth of what's happening for me right now. And I'm scared. I'm scared that I'm going to lose you if I tell you this. I'm scared of what you might feel. I'm scared of your pain and sadness if I share with you that, I have an attraction to somebody else or something, whatever it is. And actually, often it's time that I'm scared I'm scared to abandon myself. Essentially, at the core of the core is that I'm afraid that I will lose myself somewhere. And then it's easier to look at the layer or the crust on top of that, which is the relating. So yeah, thank you for bringing that visual in. I really
And
like that a
thank
lot.
you, Alice, for modeling, because Alice just modeled a couple of things that are really valuable. She modeled sharing her own vulnerability a few moments ago when she talked about, I have an issue of being misunderstood. And when I'm misunderstood, I might get reactive. That's useful information. And then the other piece about self-abandonment, like ultimately learning to be vulnerable and honest is how we create connection. We have two other amazing relationship coaches that I'm going to bring on, and that's Zamir, who you met earlier, and Dolphin. And I am going to read a couple more comments that have come in and then open it up to anything that Zamir or Dolphin want to add, either of what we've already spoken of or in response. So a couple more comments. Thank you, Eleanor. We're getting appreciations, Alice. Jeffrey writes, I had a daughter with severe body disability in our family and community, and the community saw through the physical to the beautiful soul that she was. It's so important, right? Seeing the beauty in people. So thank you for that, Jeffrey. I'm going to disappear for a moment so I can check other comments, and I want to hear from Dolphin or Zamir.
I'll go first. Yeah, I think it brings in the theme of shame that we've been talking about so far. And, one of the things that I am really excited to work with people around is something I call core belief. I'm not the first person who've coined it, but at the center of our sense of self are core beliefs that we've constructed. And these core beliefs are there to help us make sense of life. And when it comes to shame, if life has been painful, think of a very young child who experiences pain and difficulty in the context of their relationship with their parents. A child has no kind of moral compass, so to speak. They're just in full experience of life, and they're hungry to make sense of it all. And in the absence of a relational context that helps them make sense of that pain, they will naturally connect these dots. And I think this is a really powerful one for us to get. The pain, I'll actually ask in the chat, where is the pain occurring? The child who has pain, where is the pain for the child? I'm not trying to be tricky here. Like, where is the pain? I'll just give a moment if anyone wants to throw their thoughts in. Anyone? The heart? In the body. Yeah, whose body? Whose body is the pain existing in? Yeah, it's in the child's body. So a child is experiencing pain, it's here. And they look and they go, the pain is here. And they make a false conclusion that something is wrong, that they're experiencing pain and there's something wrong. And because of the location of the pain, the dot that gets connected is there's something wrong with me. And then what the child does is they look for anything that would help them make sense of why there is something wrong with them. And so this is why somebody is ashamed that they're too big. Another person is ashamed that they're too small. Somebody's ashamed that they're too tall. Somebody's ashamed that they're too short. It becomes very clear when we look at the ubiquitous nature of shame that it's not the things we're ashamed of that are the problem. They just happen to be the convenient available object that we could project onto to help us make sense of a false conclusion that there's something wrong with us. So the share that came before I just started to speak is that in a community or in a relationship where people are able to see through those objects of shame, immediately what becomes present to us is this beauty of the human heart and the human spirit. And the only thing that gets in the way of that is our own attachment to our own sense of self and the shame that we've built around it. So that if we want to truly see one another and love one another, we all have to let go of the false belief that there's something wrong with us. That's not a bypass to get off the hook of pain. Life will include pain no matter what we do. But we don't have to carry the false belief that there's something wrong. So anyway, those pieces have been really potent for me in my life and in the work that I do with people. And to me, it's like a ground floor. If we can unravel that core belief that there's something wrong with us, all sorts of beautiful possibility of relationships start to open up.
Thank you for that, Dolphin. That's beautiful practice. Just to really look at, okay, well, what am I telling myself? What am I telling myself about myself? Zamir, I would love for us to hear a little bit from you, or anything you want to riff on, or any direction you want to go in about your work and some of the ways that you support people through these situations.
Thank you. Thank you for asking. There's this, I really like this line that trauma is not something that happens to you, it's something that happens inside of you as a result of what happens to you. And so two people can go through the same event. One would emerge traumatized, the other won't. And usually the difference, or what determines that, is the degree to which they receive attunement, right? There's this psychological process of rupture and repair. And so when there's rupture, but there's no repair, then immediately, as Dolphin sort of elucidated the process, it's sort of, we begin to start to make a core belief about ourselves. And that belief is associated with a painful experience. And anything that resembles that then brings up that painful memory and the belief that's associated with it. And every time we encounter that, that becomes very painful for us. Right? And it can happen in so many different situations. I think that this is, so there's like this very human part of the journey of healing. And, I was listening to Alice before. I've heard this sort of many times, that people go on the spiritual path and then they encounter sexuality and then they feel shame around their sexuality and they have to go through a journey of reclaiming their sexuality, thinking that, actually sexuality is spiritual or pleasure is spiritual. But I think it's actually kind of a false dichotomy, but it's one that has been instituted especially by religions and by society, right? You continuously get conditioned with these beliefs that make you believe this way. But part of the challenge that we have is language, right? Someone says spirituality, what do they mean by spirituality, right? Someone hears spirituality, that may mean two different things to two different people. And so, in Sanskrit, the term spirituality is called Adhyatmic, and it means of the Atma, of the spiritual self, of the soul. Right? And so the process of spiritual growth is becoming more and more in alignment, in attunement, in connection with that spiritual nature, that which is eternal, that which is unborn, and that which is undying, that which is limitless, that which cannot be cut, that which cannot be burned, that which cannot be shamed, that which cannot be blamed, that which, any of those things. There is an essence in us that is eternally and always whole, that is essential and always authentic. Okay? The degree to which we are aligned with that allows us to have right relationship to ourselves and to the world around us. And that's a journey that all of us have to undertake. But what I think happens in the process is that if we don't have the necessary foundations, then we will do what we call like a spiritual bypassing. And I think those necessary foundations are really beautifully articulated by Abraham Maslow in his hierarchy of needs, right? And so that's safety and survival, belonging, self-esteem, and then self-actualization. So, in the context of, relationship or something like what Alice shared, it's like, your sense of belonging and self-esteem is deeply affected by the person that you're with kind of rejecting you, right? Or our perception of that rejection. And so then we look in ourselves and say, okay, well, what's wrong with me, right? And often, if we don't have a deeply rooted sense of innate belonging and innate self-esteem that has been nurtured either through our families or our communities and our loved ones, we become very vulnerable, right? We become very vulnerable to these negative thoughts, these negative beliefs and negative emotions, right, that happen. And so, in Abraham Maslow, later on in life, he went to India and he met many spiritually realized souls. And he added another point to his pyramid, and he called it self-transcendence, right? It was like only kind of later on did he come to encounter realizing that, we need this holistic process of development before we are able to access the higher levels of spiritual realization, the spiritual knowledge and the spiritual states that have been shared and spoken to us by many of the mystics and masters and teachers, especially from the East. And so what happens is that we're kind of coming with this pot that's sort of cracked and it's not stable, right? Our psyche is not stable. And so what happens is that we want these really high experiences and teachings. And then when something reveals the cracks in the pot, we begin to feel like, oh, wait a minute, this is not compatible with me, right? It's not compatible with my life. And that becomes, sometimes we can reject the higher possibility, the higher teaching as a result of that. But I think part of the work is to look and say, okay, how do I really nurture and support this deep, stable foundation so that from there, I can expand and extend to those higher spiritual possibilities. And especially nowadays, people are taking plant medicines or they get encountering with very high, powerful spiritual teachings. Sounds amazing. They have beautiful out-of-body experiences, but then they haven't come down to really address the foundation of their psyche. And without that, you're going to end up encountering a lot of problems and maybe even warping sort of the true essence or what that teaching is pointing to.
No, thank you so much. I'm just getting to know you, and I really appreciate how you bring so many other teachers and awareness into the mix. So thank you for that. I'm going to open it up to, bring everybody on for a minute again. And would love to ask all of you to maybe share another tool or practice for self-pleasure, overcoming shame, any of the issues that we're kind of talking about today. I'd love for each of you to provide maybe one of your favorite tips or one of your favorite practices, and maybe share how you use that practice or how maybe one of your clients has used it and it's made an impact. Alice, would you be willing to go first?
Sure, I'm happy to, although I see a kind of a smirk on Dolphin's face, and I'm wondering if there's something really alive for him and he would want to jump in right now.
I'm good.
No? Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm happy to share one. So thank you both as well, Dolphin and Zamir, for sharing your pieces. I feel like these conversations are always so rich when there's different perspectives that are being brought in to to look at and to explore and see like, oh, how does that land in my body when I hear Dolphin say that, Zamira say that, Alice share that, like what is happening and alive for you in any moment. So yeah, I just wanted to give gratitude for that. One of the things that I do use as a tool, which I think would be great to share in this moment, is to be able to tune into different aspects of our body, to be able to see what are the pieces that are here at the same time. And I share this because I don't know if you've ever had a moment where you're feeling confused about a decision or conflicted about something, like should I do this or should I do that, or I don't know, how to move in my life. This is where your mind says one thing, but your body's saying something, but your sex is saying something else. How do you navigate those situations, whether you're on your own or whether you're in relationship? And so I like to use a simple tool. It's very simple, and it has 4 layers and possibly 5, depending on how you connect to these words. And I would love to do it right now. It'll take us like 5 minutes or less. Great. Is that okay, Scott, if we do that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, great. So, so wherever you're tuning in from, just close your eyes down for a moment. And if you can, have your feet on the earth or be sitting somewhere where you feel solidly supported. And take just a single breath right now. Big inhale. And big exhale. And we've shared a lot. We've done a lot of talking, all of us together, for the last 50 minutes. So just taking a few moments to let the words, the conversation, just fall away. And now tune into yourself and see, is there one place in your life, maybe even one question, where you're feeling conflicted? Okay, I'm seeing a lot of nods, even with people's eyes closed. Good. So if that's arising, and it could be something big, like, oh my God, this has been weighing on me for months. Or it could be something that's just like a tiny little thing that's creating an ick inside. Okay, so hopefully you've got that. And now place one hand to your belly. One hand to your belly. And then the belly is often the place where we store emotions. Like it's like the second brain. It's this feeling part. So how do you feel about this emotionally? Like what feelings are coming up for you in this situation where you feel conflicted? And this is a conversation you with you. So be honest. Give yourself permission to feel everything that you feel. Anything that arises is perfect. It's just information. So what does your belly have to say about this? Good. Now take a deep breath in. And as you exhale, make a good sound that just signals to your nervous system that it's okay to relax. You're safe to be here. And now take one hand to your sex, so to your genitals. And you can do that energetically, or you can place your hand on there, whatever feels the most comfortable for you. And our genitals represent our animal body, as well as our sexual being. And sometimes they have a whole life of their own. And so tuning in for just a minute right now, what does your sex have to say about this? And maybe it's saying something through words, Or maybe you notice a sensation, hot, cold, warm, tingly, alive, numb. Just letting that be welcome. Sometimes you might hear nothing, and that's also okay. You're still listening. Okay, deep breath in. And another exhale, sound out. Okay, now place one hand to your head. Or if that feels kind of awkward, then you can just leave your hands down, but tune into your mind. Because the mind is also a brilliant tool. You might have some thoughts on this topic. So tune into what your mind has to say about this right now. Give it some space to say whatever it needs. Okay, I know we're going through this quickly, but deep breath in. And again, that sound on the exhale might sound a little dramatic sometimes, but it's really helpful. It does tell the nervous system it's okay to be here. Okay, hand to heart. Dear heart, my beloved sacred heart, does your heart have to share? Okay, deep breath in. Breath out. Okay, last one. Okay, now tune into the space that you would associate with your soul or spirit, or that which is your higher self, your greater self, the self. And give it a few moments right now. What do you hear here? Good. And when you've given yourself these moments to listen, then one last breath. And take this moment to come on back. So I'm curious if you want to share how that was for you, pop it in the chat. And I know we've got 2 more practices to share with you from our other facilitators, so I don't want to take up too much space. But I just offer that as a tool when you feel like different parts of you might be fragmented, to really give them all a space to be heard, because they can all be true at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Alice. And please put in the chat box. I'm checking Love Coach Academy and Unify Facebook. I'll check Zoom Room. I'll share some of the comments. So please let us know how that was. Leah Sasloff right away says I had a strong feeling. So that was beautiful, Alice. Thank you so much.
Yeah, pleasure.
Dolphin, Zamir, anything you want to share about the practice that you experienced first, and then, of course, what your practice is that you want?
Yeah, I enjoyed when I connected to the heart. There was a situation that it's come up today, and it was a very clear message in my heart what I needed for me, right? And I think that connects to that theme of self-love, which is, what is it? What does my heart truly say? Like, what does it want? And when you hear that message, to not doubt it. And I think, as Alice was saying, and all of us, when we talk about these core beliefs, especially deep feelings like shame, is that we have this inner conflict, and that's the struggle that we undergo. But the more we can get really clear on this is what's true for me, that is self-love. I think it's being like, this is what is true for me, and I embrace that and embody it. And that's how we love ourselves, because I feel that, in relationships, if you give freedom, then you'll get freedom, right? So if you give freedom to yourself, you'll be able to give freedom to others, and people will be able to give freedom to you. And if they don't, that's okay, because you give freedom to yourself, right? And I think that's a big part of loving oneself. What I wanted to say as a practice is actually something that I noticed. Is this sound something that is coming from me? Does anyone else hear the sound or no? I'm not sure. I don't know if it's my head. Maybe it's just my headphones.
Yeah,
Uh,
the
You
sound
sound good.
sounds good. Yeah, everything sounds good on our
Sounds
end.
good. Okay, no worries. So I think it was George, Mr. Noble. I think he was in the chat, but he said something around regulating sexual energy for men. And I think there's a lot of shame for men that comes up around this. I mean, the average ejaculatory cycle for men is like 6 minutes or 7 minutes, or not a long length of time, and women take a lot longer, often, to be able to have to be brought to orgasm. And so there's sometimes shame associated with that for men, and I wanted to say that it's something that I've encountered in myself in the past and with other men, and I think it's so important to acknowledge that that's the case, and to seek out those practices that help you to correctly circulate and work with your sexual energies, and that there's no shame in doing that. In fact, it's going to bring you a lot more comfort with your sexuality. And I just think, at this point, with the amount of information that we have in the internet and out in the world, I just think that, teenagers should learn about this in school. We should be learning about these kind of things. It's so important. So I think that that's a very helpful practice. And also I just would like to share, acknowledge for those who are, at least on the spiritual path, I think that there can be a conflict that comes around sexuality. And sometimes we hear these teachings that we have to transcend our sexuality. And then we try to impose it when we're not ready for it. And then as a result, when we try to impose something on ourselves that we're not ready for, we begin to create an enemy out of that restriction or out of that idea, right? And that's what I think is very important to recognize, that there will be a phase in one's like growth or development where it may be natural to not want to have as much sexual interaction. And you start to work with your sexual energies in a different way. And when that happens naturally for you, to honor that. And that's what's important, right? Trying to impose it on yourself prematurely, you're going to create conflict and struggle within yourself. And it's going to activate a lot of those negative beliefs, and you'll create suffering for your partner as well, right? And so I think acknowledging that there will be a time and a place, and that's the deeper meaning of brahmacharya, which is to graze on the divine, to graze on the refined energies of life. And so, you might just find that you're nurtured by very subtle things, and that, you don't feel as called to have as much sexual interaction. Well, that's where you're at naturally, then honor that. But you don't have to impose that upon yourself, because there's no person out in the sky that's, going to give you a merit badge for doing it. Like, it doesn't work like that.
Thank you, Zamir. I know that Zamir needs to go. He's not going to be able to be
Yeah.
with us as long. So I'm going to actually take this moment to let people know how you can get more of him. Of course, Zamir and all the coaches you're seeing, including myself, are going to be available through RelationFlix. So you definitely want to go to the Depth Summit and register and get that VIP pass. But you can also learn all about Zamir by going to his website, and it's his name, Zamir Dhanji, Zamirdhanji.com. And a couple things, when you open up to the main page, if you go down and scroll down, he's got this wonderful journey on patterns to presence, which really looks beautiful. So I encourage you to check that out. It's a 5-week transformational journey. But he also has created cards. And refresh my memory, I find it by going...
The Inner Path deck.
Here it is, the Inner Path deck. Thank you.
Yeah.
So you click on it and tell us about these beautiful cards that you've created.
Yeah, just very briefly, I'm very passionate about yogic knowledge, yoga philosophy, and I found that as I was teaching students that they get so excited about it, but then they would forget, because it's quite a learning journey. So we created a yoga oracle, yoga tarot, as a way for people to engage with the teachings of the 8 limbs of yoga with beautiful art and insights and teachings from the yogic tradition. So people who want to be able to use it, they can draw a card, put it on their altar. There's different teachings that each card has, and then they can go deeper into the practices. So it's for people who are also visual learners and want to bring the yoga teachings into their life in a beautiful way.
Wow. These cards are beautiful. Absolutely
Thank you.
beautiful. Oh my gosh, look at that. Wow. These are incredible. Well, Zamir, thank you so much for being part of this show
Thank you.
today, being part of RelationFlix. We still are going to hear a practice from Dolphin, and then we also going to have some music, and then we'll get to questions and answers. But I'm going to put the spotlight on you, Dolphin.
Thanks, Zamir. Great to see you. Yeah, so I mean, I wanted to address just a couple of things in my practice response. Eleanor in the chat said all the members in the boardroom had a different response. Now I'm going to interpret that. I often speak about our self not as some singular cohesive identity, but as a chorus of voices. That when we start to become more attuned to our inner landscape, we know that there are these different parts of us, literally all of these different identities with their own senses of self, their own priorities, their own values, their own desires. And whereas that can initially be quite overwhelming, when we get able to be quiet and present to our inner movements, what we start to see is that this chorus of voices is bringing extremely relevant and valuable information to us. So each voice is bringing some message that is meant to be heard and honored and loved by us. The challenge becomes is most of us have developed a distorted interpretation of the message of these voices. And so then the voice comes, and especially if it's an uncomfortable feeling like shame, our fix for that is to kind of push it away, or to try to numb to it, or to project it onto others. And so the practice that I believe is one of the most powerful practices I've ever used, and one that I often recommend to clients and people that I work with, is I just talk about rehearsal. I worked with athletes for years. And so in athletics, you train so that when competition time comes, you're in flow. You're ready for anything that the competition throws at you. And so, these moments of particularly triggered shame within the context of interaction and relationship can often be quite overwhelming for us. It might only populate a small, we lost me. Okay, sorry. I think my video just got a bit funny. So we often don't experience the really extreme triggers of shame that often. And so we don't have a big skill set for it. So the rehearsal is for us to, when we're in a good space, physiologically, mentally, emotionally, to then imagine those moments that we know tend to trigger our shame, where the thoughts that occur, the physical somatic sensations that are there, the emotions that arise, we can kind of bring ourselves to that space of feeling triggered in our shame. And instead of maybe our reflexive approach to shame, which is to kind of maybe get small or create distance from us and others, is to actually open our posture. So in the midst of eliciting a sense of shame in your body, instead of your normal response to turn away or to get small, to consciously open your posture, to take a few deep breaths, and to ask the shame what it has to tell you. So what I've discovered is that as we start to engage these quote unquote negative emotions in a different way, with a different posture, with a different emotional orientation, the information of that experience comes through as something that is just rich with value and information for us. And so the shame might be this 4 or 5-year-old part of us that made a mistake when we were very little. And now the message is actually like, there's nothing wrong with you, or I just want to be held, or love me. It comes through as a kind of direct request. And when we're really tapped into our deepest space, it comes through as what I call our heart's desire. And I would distinguish the heart's desire from intellectual ideas that we favor or even emotional experiences that we think are good. The heart's desire is not an experience in and of itself. The heart's desire is a knowing in the heart. And so these practices of rehearsal, where we bring ourselves to moments where we tend to close off, we tend to contract or dissociate from our experience, to get used to practicing being open and connected in the midst of those experiences. And just like in sport, where we train and we get better, this kind of rehearsal allows us to, when those moments of shame in real time, in real relationships show up, our nervous system and this awareness that can hold it, instead of doing the reflexive thing, there's this space of opportunity, there's this space of choice that wasn't there before, because we've cultivated it through our practice of rehearsal. So that's a really practical piece that I use in a lot of different contexts, and I find people get just massive amounts of value and transformation from it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. We're going to have some music. We're going to bring on Omashar to play music. But while he does that, I want to encourage everyone, while listening to the music, integrating what Alice and Dolphin, Samir have shared, I want to encourage people to go to the Depth Summit and get that VIP pass. So as we listen to the music, integrate, but also go to Depth Summit and get the pass. Only $99, and there's so many things you're going to get. It's really remarkable. You guys, it's too little. Honestly, it's way too little. I mean, 30 different teachers on every imaginable topic. And again, look at all these extraordinary teachings and people that they've got amazing videos with. So go to depthsummit.com, scroll down, and get the VIP pass. And I'm going to put the spotlight on our dear friend Omashar, who is getting ready to go to Peru on Wednesday. So this is going to be, Omashar has been blessing us with music for the past several weeks. This is his last time for a while, and you leave on Wednesday, and when do you come back?
I leave on Wednesday. I'm down there for a month. I'm traveling to Sacred Valley, a couple of hours from Machu Picchu, and I'll be playing at a small gathering there in a place called the Heart of Arm. However, thank you, and bringing myself back to here, I'm so stirred by all of the juicy information that I have received this weekend, and Alice, your practice, I will be doing that daily, and Dolphin, your practice of preparing my emotional state for when I go into my next situation when I know that I'm going to be triggered, is amazing, because I relate it to my music. I practice and practice and practice so that when I play live and my mind is freaking out, oh, I'm not worthy, that takes over. And so thank you for that practice. I've got it down, man. And this is a song called The Garden of One. And all of my songs the lyrics are communication between divine source, divine love, and myself, or vice versa. And so this is a song from divine love to our hearts. It's a very beautiful, gentle song. It's a recent song, and this is like an unplugged version. And so just let's say the Thich Nhat Hanh practice of being mindful as we breathe out and being mindful as we breathe in. And let's drop even deeper into our heart right now whilst we are going onto the Depth Summit website, really, and simultaneously, excuse me, that's just my inner self being honest, and changing to my professional sound. Garden of One.
am with you here inside. Don't worry, don't worry. And I love you more than you could know. So come along now and lay your head on my heart, on my heart. Close your eyes, dear, and rest a while in me. Keep open your heart and let in the sun, and bathe yourself in the garden of one. Know you're at home and in my embrace. Here is empty space. And now I ask you to take a step towards me, toward me. I can feel your longing to be home. So come along now and lay your head on my heart, on my heart. And close your eyes, dear, and rest a while in me. Keep open your heart and let in the sun, and bathe yourself in the garden of one. And know you're at home and in my embrace. Here is empty space. Here is empty space. Here is.
That's perfect. Thank you so much, Omashar. That's just beautiful.
You're very welcome.
I'm going to bring Alice and Dolphin on for a second. And for everybody, you can get all things Omashar by going to his website. It's his name, Omashar, OMASHAR.com. And
You can also go onto YouTube, Omashar Music. I've been creating videos during the pandemic as something to do. I'm getting reasonable at it, so Omashar.music has my videos.
right, so go to YouTube,
Omashar Music.
Omashar Music.
Thank you.
Brother, thank you so much. That was beautiful. And have a great, safe trip to Peru.
Thank you.
Well, a lot of people have been giving a lot of appreciation. We've been getting a lot of appreciation, more than questions. But anything that kind of comes up for either of you that you'd like to add or share next?
Yeah, first of all, I wanted to give my appreciation for Omashar. Thank you so much for the song and for the message of the song as well. And bringing it back somehow for it, what it moved in me was this reminder also of simplicity and how song and music move so much with so little. Not that your music is little, I don't mean it like that, but just, like bringing it back to essence. So yeah, thank you. That was beautiful. Yeah, perhaps what I would love to kind of, as we wind closer to the end, the last seed that I would love to drop to tie these pieces of our conversation together is this piece around self-pleasure. And, we spent some time looking at the shame that might be stored, why it might be there, where it's held in the tissues, how we can get the different members of the boardroom or the voices in the chorus, you know, to all be heard. Like we've gone through all of this stuff, which is really, really great material. And I love it. And then the self-pleasure piece, like why, as Scott and I were conversing a week ago around, okay, what's the topic? What do we really want to bring forward? Is the self-pleasure piece. And for me, you know, what pleasure is at its core about presence. And if we had a little bit more time, you know, I would suggest, and maybe you can do this later on your own on a walk or something like that, is to go and really ask yourself this question: what is pleasure? What is pleasure? What is pleasure? And keep on asking yourself that question. And you may find yourself really surprised at what surfaces with that word, because that word is a bit of a loaded word. And it's a word that we might already have a lot of preconditioned ideas as to what that is. You know, pleasure is eating dark chocolate slowly, or pleasure is taking a bath with all of my oils and tuning out the world for 5 hours, or pleasure, you know, you might already have these preconditioned stories and ideas about what that is. And yet, when I've done this with women that I work with, the core, and this is a bit of a spoiler alert, I suppose, that the core of what we always get down to is presence. You know, how can I be fully present in this moment? How can I be fully present in my body, through my senses, in my feelings, in my perception of the world? How can I be so present with this freckle that I'm seeing on my beloved's face that I've never noticed before, and be so fully there that it brings so much pleasure to my eyes to see this? You know, I'm sitting here sweating right now in Costa Rica, and there is just so much pleasure in being here through the senses. That is not because I just had an extravagant place to stay or something like that. It's the feeling of salt water lapping over my bare skin. You know, it's the humidity of being here and seeing the luscious green that's behind me right now. Like, these are the moments of pleasure. And why is it important, and how does it link to self-love? For me, it kind of comes back to what some of our other teachers were saying. Like, when we're really paying attention to ourselves, when we really see through all those layers of shame that keep me from seeing my own divine beauty, or Scott's or Dolphin's or Omashar's or whoever's, there is only beauty there. There is only love there. That is the very stuff that we are made up of. As Scott said, when people have near-death experiences, this is what they come back to. And I've had a near-death experience, and I'd never heard it be put that way. And you're so right, Scott, that happened for me. And that I also really realized I'm here to learn to love. I'm here to learn love in all of its facets, and fumble my way through, and have my dinosaur moments, and my deeply connected, intimate, wow, this is life moments, and everything in between. And pleasure is one of the ways that I've found rewrites and rewires the conditioning of worthiness, because you do deserve pleasure. And it's not even that you deserve it. It's that it's here. It's an isness. It's a fact. It's a, you know, when we open up ourselves to life in all of its facets. So yeah, that's the seed that I would love to sow as we transition is how can you give yourself permission and know your worth and your value of being here on this planet, because you are here. And that pleasure through presence is really to be in the body as a living prayer of seeing, feeling, knowing the divine everywhere, including in yourself.
Alice, I love who you are. I love the way you express yourself, and your combination of passion and humility. Just beautiful. And I definitely would love to have you on one of my shows again, because clearly there's so much more to share. And that's very cool about you also having a similar near-death experience. Gosh, I could talk to you for hours.
I would love that, Scott.
You definitely want to do that.
Yeah.
For everybody, here is where you want to go. You want to go to alicehong.com/. self-care toolkit. And I'm going to take that link and I will put it in the chat box here in Zoom Room, Unify. And thank you to all the people watching on Unify and on Love Coach Academy. But what's great is when you go there, she's got gifts. Alice has gifts for us. She has the gifts that we've received today. Tell us about what we're going to get. I'm going to do that right now. I'm filling it in.
Yeah, great.
I'm not a robot.
Yeah.
What are the gifts that I and we are
Yeah,
going to...
I guess robots also really wanted some self-care practices as well. We had to put that on there because I was getting so spammed. Yeah, so what's inside is what I really, this got created actually during the beginning of the pandemic, is I recorded 5 of my best embodiment practices that I do in my own personal life often, that I share with my clients as a self-care toolkit for you to have these resources for you to integrate into your everyday life. And inside, there's something for different aspects that might come up. There's a beautiful tantric heart meditation that teaches you to create more spaciousness in your heart for all that you are feeling. There is a shaking practice of when you're like, okay, I need to move some energy and I don't want to be dumping it on my partner or in my intimate relationships, to learn how to take charge and move that yourself first. And there's a few really great ones in there, but those are the 2 that I wanted to highlight. Oh, there's another good emotional release one to, like, come back into your power, let go of energy. So yes, those are in there for you as a free gift. And then that way we'll also stay connected and we'll have each other's contact and we can stay in touch about any other future future ways to connect.
Beautiful. Alice, thank you so much. And I want to stick around for a moment because I want to bring up one thought and then we'll bring Dolphin on to wrap it up. But thank you, Andreas, for what you wrote. And actually, there's a question from Don. So I'm going to respond to Andreas, and then Alice, if you want to respond to Don's question. I'm going to take what Andreas wrote and I'm going to build on a little bit. One of the things that I've observed is that most of us were raised with a particular religion, a particular religious orientation. And then we reached a point in our life where we realized that that religion wasn't for us. Maybe there was hypocrisy that we saw or whatever it might be. But most people that I know broke away from whatever religion or spiritual upbringing they first were raised with. The fortunate ones then find their own spiritual path. And sometimes they come back to Christianity in a new way, or they come back to Buddhism in a new way. Other times they have their own unique experience through martial arts or yoga or meditation or some form of practice, playing a musical instrument. But sometimes people throw the baby out with the bathwater. Their disappointment, their disillusionment with the religion that they've pushed away, which was an understandable push away, and in many cases, a good case for discernment. But they haven't embraced their own direct connection to whatever you want to call it, because I'm multi-denominational. I honor and respect all paths to the divine. Then there is a growing cynicism that can happen, a growing cynicism in life. And so when Alice was talking about self-pleasure and expanding it beyond just the obvious, I want to just speak to the great self-pleasure of divine connection, having your own direct connection to whatever you want to call it, the Holy Ghost, Spirit, God, life, nature, Mother Earth, Divine Mother, Divine Father, Jesus, Mary Magdalene, Bugs Bunny, whoever you personally relate to, okay? But having that direct connection that really brings freedom of safety, and call it faith. I work a lot with people that are dealing with hard stuff, divorce, cancer, death, dying. And I want to say the people that have a practice, the people that have a faith, it's so much easier. Doesn't mean there isn't still hard stuff, but that support is essential. And isn't the greatest form of self-love connection to source, our own authentic connection to source? So I just want to encourage everybody, whatever your practice, if you have a practice, do it more. And if you don't have a practice, find a practice. Zamir offered some wonderful examples. I'm sure Alice and Dolphin can find examples. Cultivate a practice to have that connection, because great self-love is connected to self-sourcing and connection to source. So I wanted to put that in there, and I'm going to bring Alice back on, see if she has anything to say about that. Bring Dolphin back on. Take it away.
Yes. That's yes, so well put. That's what I want to say. Yes to all of that. Thank you, Scott, for weaving that in. And yeah, to clarify as well, like and is one of my favorite words. I probably talk in a million run-on sentences often because I love this word and I love it because it does not throw out the baby with the bathwater, like you said, Scott. It's there's such gifts, right? And there's such gifts in what has gotten each of us to where we are into this moment. So it's not to say that anything you've done before was wrong, or that you know, it was what it was, and it has gotten you deep learnings to get to this moment right now of whatever possibilities might open up for you when we truly become present with what is now. So yeah, just thank you for bringing that thread in, and also bringing back to the connection to self-source. I loved it when you said that as well. There was something that made me sit up a little taller and rest more in myself around self-source as the little s sourcing, as well as self-source as source. So yeah, thank you.
Dolphin, we're very close to the conclusion here. I want to give you a chance to give your kind of final thoughts, and then I'll close this out.
Cool. Yeah, my audio's on. My partner Jessica always says I never promote myself, and so I'll just, for anyone that wants more kind of direct with me, my Instagram is probably the best place to be in touch with me. So I just put that in the chat. Yeah, I mean, there's so much in what we've explored so far. I love the idea of a distinction between pleasure that moves from the inside out versus pleasure that we try to access from the outside in. I think if we look at any kind of fixated or addictive type patterns where we're pursuing pleasure, the outcome is never good. But when we're present, then all of a sudden this joy of being is there, this joy of the subtle, the joy of the small, the joy that isn't contingent on a particular circumstance is there with us when we're present. And I just want to connect a dot for people. When we look at the science of addiction, and Gabor Mate, who was referenced earlier, speaks about this a lot, that addiction is an attempt to meet a need. It's not the problem. The addiction is not the problem. The addiction is an attempt at a solution. And the problem it is attempting to solve is disconnection. Mm-hmm. And we might say disconnection from other, but once we've done enough inner work, we know that everything about our connection with other is mitigated by our connection to self, our connection to our own heart. So the presence to me is a returning home to being connected to our own heart. And through that connection, the real meaning and joy of life is there. And that's what authentic pleasure is. Authentic pleasure is the movement of joy when we're connected to our own heart. And of course, that enables us to be connected to others' hearts. So to me, it's so simple. And then we can populate the pleasure with anything we like. Then there's pleasure in work. Then there's pleasure in swimming in the ocean. Then there's pleasure in navigating conflict with our partner, because we know what it's all really about.
Thank you so much, Dolphin. It's beautiful. I'll bring Dolphin and Alice on one last time so you can just all kind of say goodbye. And thank you, everybody, for watching our Sacred Sunday show. Don's question. Alice, did you see Don's question? He asked
let me take a look.
I'll read it to you.
Okay.
Don writes, when you have a partner, does self-pleasure bring guilt to yourself? Self-pleasure without your partner? Great question, Don, and I'm sorry that we almost missed it. But that's a great question. Take it away, there, Alice?
I love that question. Thank you so much, Don. And I love it because I get it. I totally get it from my body. So in short, my answer is no. I have zero guilt now about bringing pleasure to myself without my partner, and it hasn't always been that way. And I'm not saying that that is the only way. And this is definitely a bigger conversation that we could have a whole show about. So I'm cautious to not open up a huge door, but I want to respond to your question, which is that for me, and what I've seen in the clients that I worked with is the more self-resourced we are, the more resourced, the more nourished we are, the more we have to give. It just goes that way. Otherwise, it gets really a bit sticky in a relationship where, who's giving what, who, and how can I give that person pleasure and they give me, like, no. Once you really learn to not outsource your pleasure to anybody else, or for your partner to not to outsource their pleasure to you, but that we really take pleasure into our own as our own responsibility, just like really having our needs met is our own responsibility. Now we can encourage and we can ask for support from the people that we love around us, but it's really ours. So the key part for me is the more that I am resourced, nourished in my radiance, in my joy, then I've got so much pleasure to give, and it comes from a place of joyous overflow. Yeah.
I want to riff on that for a minute. And thank you very much, Dawn, for that great question and good response. A practice that I offer to coach to couples after I've worked with them closely is for them to pleasure themselves with the other one watching, which is a beautiful form of intimacy. It creates intimacy. It also is a great way, especially for women, to educate their man of how they like to be touched. And if we've learned how to touch ourselves in a way that we love and that works for us, and we can show that to our partner, now we don't have a partner fumbling around, but a partner actually learning what we like and how we like it. And it actually can be a wonderful way to create greater intimacy between a couple. So I wanted to add that as a thought. Once again, thank you, Alice. Thank you, Dolphin. Thank you, everybody, for watching. If you enjoy this show, please share it out with your friends and let people know about the Global Peace Tribe, about our upcoming shows. And next weekend, we're going to continue and kind of carry on with this theme. And the topic for next weekend, just leading us right into Valentine's, is how true love creates heaven on earth. And I've invited some of my absolute favorite people. Larissa Stowe is going to be my co-host for the all three shows. Viraja Prema also is going to be with us for all three shows. Emily, who I was in relationship with for 5 years, is going to be with us. Deva Pramal and Mitan are going to be providing music, and they are such an example of true love in their relationship and their connection to the divine, and so on, many other people. It's going to be a great weekend. And so let's all prepare and think about that. There's a homework assignment for everybody. How do you experience the possibility or the philosophy or the direct experience of true love creating heaven on earth? Because isn't that what we all want? Isn't that what the awakening world is all about? We're here to really bring heaven on earth, whether it's moment by moment, which is kind of where we are right now, and maybe even in a bigger way. Last thought, and this is how I always close my Sacred Sunday show. Remember, we can make any moment sacred by choosing to see the divinity in Alice, in Dolphin, in ourself, in those people that we have trouble with. Seeing the divinity in all is how we make any moment sacred. Thank you, everybody, so much for watching, for listening, for sharing this out with others, and we'll look forward to seeing you next weekend. Take care.